Hello and welcome to Boardgame Bonkers. I'm Jay Sears. I'm under the Meeple lights today. We have Mackenzie Franklin from SideGames LLC, which is a YouTube channel all about board games. Welcome, Mackenzie.
Thank you so much for having me, Jay.
Thanks so much for coming on. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. On our channel, we do several different types of videos, whether it be reviews, kind of talking about what we've been playing. But one main thing that we've been doing is organizing videos to get people into their large games, whether it be a Kickstarter delivery or something more simple that's just really popular so they can get into the game quickly. This actually stemmed from a original business idea that we started going with, which is a game night hosting service. And that's our primary form of what we do here in Colorado Springs, where we cater game night events for different families, schools, large conventions, bring our library of games. And so part of the review process is cultivating a library in order to have the perfect experiences for different groups of people, different ages, and make sure that they're having a great time with gaming without having to deal with any of the rules. And we're able to facilitate, just make sure they're having an awesome time doing it. So that's our whole spiel as a whole, but looking forward to some more questions you might have.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. And we'll put all links in the description down below so people can check that out. So for those who are not familiar with the show, perhaps the first thing you clicking on and having a look what Under the Meeple Light show is all about. Well, we'll be presenting 10 questions to us. There's not a quiz, it's a Q&A, well, and with a few twists. So what is the twist? Well, you'll know if you've been watching these what that twist is. Our questions will be drawn from this bowl. So our guest has no idea which questions will be coming out, what the questions are, and well, no idea which one will be coming out either. So when we finish with those 10 questions, we'll move them to the side. So future guests coming on, we'll have 10 completely new, fresh questions. Now we're coming towards the end of season one. As you can see, the bowl is getting a little bit empty. So when we finish up, we'll fill it back up for season two with 120 fresh new questions. So will our guests thrive under the Meeple lights, or will they be a little bit nervous? We're about to find out as we present 10 questions to our guests. So Mackenzie, are we ready?
I'm ready and I'm looking forward to what's left in that bowl.
Fantastic. So let's dive in for question one. Okay, so what's the most common mistake you see people make at a convention, or perhaps it could be a company, mistakes that you see companies or people making when they go to a convention?
The biggest mistake that I see people making in conventions is understanding attention span of people who are participating in games. A lot of the times, the conventions that I run are for children. So you have children that are coming in, want to learn to play, and want to get started. They don't have the time or necessarily even want to take the time to sit down and hear a huge rules explanation. So this needs to be built into the teach, understanding that time restriction and getting kids playing, getting adults playing. A lot of adults don't have attention spans to sit there and listen to rules. So making sure that your game is accessible and making sure that your teaching style is accessible, even for games that have more complicated rule sets. I once sat down with somebody who brought Arc Novo or Scythe to a large convention, and those are games you can have success with bringing to conventions, but the teach for them was about 30, 45 minutes, and I couldn't believe that this was happening. So that's a big thing for me, is understanding those time restrictions, restraints, and challenges when it comes to actually presenting games.
Yeah, it's a very good point, because a lot of people want to go there and play lots of different games, especially new games that bought, and they want to kind of cut down that time on I need to learn the rules. And sometimes it's great to kind of find the group, know the game or saw the rules of games in order to, well, to dive in and start play it as you go along and learn as you go along. And I remember a time when I went to a very small convention in Cardiff, and it was actually arranged by Rules of Play. It's a very popular board game store in Cardiff, in Wales. And I went along and I was playtesting one of my games I designed for our children. It's a very simple rule set. So I was getting the children along and saying, look, let's just play as we go along. You know, let's roll the dice. This is how you activate the dice. This is how you do this. And after two turns, I knew how to play the game, and I had a fun time indeed. I had more children coming over. And quite incidentally, which was quite amusing, was a week later, they went into the shop saying, can we buy the game? So that was a really good, feedback session that I had. And you're right, if you try and limit the rules of explaining a game, And especially for children, you just want to dive in and start playing. They don't want to hear about all these rules.
And leading on to that a little bit more, as if you're dealing with people who understand the more nuance and strategies of this, if they are coming into a game not understanding everything, but then a couple of turns go by and they understand the symbology, the combos, the different things that you can build, that's another reason for them to come back and visit the game. Come back and make sure, ooh, this is one I actually want to try again, because now I have this background. I can actually make these informed decisions from turn one, but they still have that fun time during the initial game because everyone's at that same.
Well, I think we've lost you.
Forward to. Oh, did you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think we lost you there for a second. You froze for about the last 10 seconds. So, yeah, I couldn't quite catch what you said at the end.
Okay, so this is basically another way that they can become invested in a game. You have all these people coming in at the same skill level because you're starting with that form of teaching, which means that they'll be excited to come in the next time because now they have that prior history, but they can still enjoy the current experience.
Absolutely. And yeah, the more games we can play, the better. So let's move on to question 2. Let's see what comes out this time. So we have got a lot of fluffy questions left. There's not many that have come out with a lot of guesses, but tough questions. Let's see if we get any fluffies. We might not. So, who are the people in the board game industry that you look up to?
Ooh, I think that I look up to designers the most. I think that designers coming up with the things that make us enjoy games. That's the thing that I look the most up to. I can sit here and make critiques on every single game that I play, but I'm not doing the actual creating myself. So I've definitely dabbled in game design, but having a designer that successively makes amazing games that are going to be things that bring you back, that are innovative and interesting, or maybe even iterate on pre-existing things but add new ideas. That's the key to making this hobby continue. If you have designers that aren't great, no one's going to even engage with this hobby. So that's the thing that I have the biggest respect for, is that time and dedication to creating games, putting in the effort, because I know it takes time to make these things perfect, and it takes lots of creativity to make something brand new. So that's my biggest thing, is designers.
Do you have a particular favorite?
My favorite designer, I think I did the numbers on this, is Nate French. So Nate French is a designer for several living card games, and he does things like Arkham Horror, Lord of the Rings, Marvel Champions. He's working on Earthborn Rangers, and the ideas that he puts into a cooperative systems make me so excited to explore the world's deck build. And so he's definitely one of my favorite designers.
Yeah, there's certainly, a popular game designer. He's all right, and everyone's got their favourite. It'd be great to hear from the viewers as well and what their favourite is. So we'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment down below, and you can in particular favourite game designers that you really enjoy. There are quite a few popular ones out there, and it'd be great to hear what everyone else thinks. So let's move on to question 3. Well, make it a bit easier picking them out. Now we're reducing the number considerably. So, what's something you've drawn inspiration from recently? So, you're thinking about your YouTube channel and creation of the videos. Anything you're taking inspiration from?
This is a great question. I actually just talked about this. It's my thumbnails for my videos. So I was looking at my thumbnails. I'm like, these aren't super attention grabbing before. And I completely changed the way that I created them. Instead of having lots of text, I basically blew them up to one giant picture with a small word that's blown up. So it's just one huge picture and then the words, whatever the word is. Party, game, 2023, whatever it may be. And this inspiration actually drew from the Marvel movies, particularly Civil War, as well as Avengers Infinity War, where one of the screens that they show is just the background of space, and it just says space on it. I love that so much. It lets you know exactly where you are. It's hilarious. And I think that it's extremely attention grabbing. And you see the same thing in Civil War, where it's like Belarus, Budapest, etc. And so you get the idea, okay, oh, this is where we are, immediate attention grabbing, and you're trying to pick up all of the little things in the background. I love this, and I think it works well for the videos as well.
Yeah, sometimes less is more. It can also create a sense of curiosity, can't it?
Precisely. And I thought that was something that was going to be intriguing for people. They see this like, ooh, okay, this is something that even that single word, 2023, ooh, why? Okay, 2023, what? It's awesome. It's going to be something engaging. And the bright, vibrant colors that exist in board games and board game assets are things that I could use, seeing as this is going to relate directly to the content I'm creating.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's quite interesting. A little bit of marketing theory here is that a lot of large, or I mean, very large corporate companies are actually changing the way they do the logos. So they're actually stripping it back to how it was originally and keeping it simple, straightforward, because they realize that when you keep something the same, you don't actually change something. What happens psychologically is people start to switch off and use what's called the brain filtering system that no longer recognizes that, which is why let's change it. So people will start picking up and recognizing it's something new, but we stripped it back to something more simple.
It's like that old business practice. If you can explain it in 5 words or less, you're going to have a better time getting it through.
Absolutely. So let's move on to question 4. So what's the last thing you did for the first time?
The last thing. Now, this doesn't have to be gaming related, right? Just in general.
This can be anything. But let's
Anything that I
keep it clean.
keep it clean. You got it. You got it. Thing that I did for the first time. I searched for fossils. So that is one thing that I did recently for the first time. So something that I've been really curious with in general is archaeology. I think it's so fascinating and interesting. But I had the opportunity recently, I visited my brother down in Florida to go and look for fossilized shark teeth. So these are from prehistoric creatures, megalodons, all these awesome ones. And there's a beach that just has millions of them. They're everywhere, but you do have to do some digging. The way that the current works is it brings up these fossils, but people go there and it's been happening for like the last 70 years and there's no shortage of them because they just keep on being brought up from the ocean. But you sift through with your hands and go through every single grain of sand, and then you find them, these cool fossilized shark teeth. That was something that I thought was awesome, getting to have these fossils and having it be just okay to take them. That's amazing to me. And that just makes me super excited to have more opportunities like this, to see that bit of history and be able to even take it with you. So cool.
Well, it's certainly a unique experience, isn't it? It's not something you do normally when you go down to a beach and start finding these, well, look, I've got a tooth.
It's wild. And you could see people coming in with like nets and sifters. It almost felt like gold mining because everybody knew what they were doing. They had the tools to do it. And that's what they were doing for that day. So much fun, but also something you could do casually.
Wonderful. So let's move on to the next question, number 5. So it's quite a big one, this. So, is your first day on the job as an evil villain? So what's the first piece of mischief you commit?
If you truly want to be an evil villain, it's to take out the internet. That's the first thing you do. It's going to impact every single person on the planet. It's going to make things inconvenient, so everyone's going to hate you for that. And it's going to ruin almost every single facet that most businesses use today. It's going to ruin the economy. It's going to ruin the flow of money. It's going to ruin access to information and knowing what's going on. That's the ultimate form of disruption, chaos. I think that's the thing you do. You take out the internet and make people scramble. So that's what I would do. I don't know what my ultimate goal is, but I know the internet's the first thing that's going.
Incidentally, yesterday I was thinking about questions for the next season, and that was one of the questions about, well, what would you do if you had no internet over the next 5 years? How would you live?
It's a huge problem, and it's so integrated into everything that we do that it's going to make some major waves.
Oh, absolutely. But, there's a lot of people so engrossed with everything they do in the internet, or companies, businesses rely on the internet. You take that away. And I think it would be a great thing not to even have it for a couple of weeks and just, let's communicate the normal way like we should be communicating.
I think that would be challenging for a lot of people, to say the least. It'd be a great reward for those people that are shoving cash under their mattresses, that's for sure.
And more time to play games.
Hey, there we go.
So let's move on to question number 6. So what gaps and opportunities do you see in the board game industry?
Gaps and opportunities. This is a challenging question to think about. So this is one of the reasons we started doing organizing videos on our channel, is because they just don't exist. And if they do exist, they're not really done well. So that's one thing that we wanted to do. And the sort of the general rule with YouTube content is you either have to do it the best or you have to do it first. And so I try to do a meld of those with the organizing videos to make sure that we had something that was truly unique, but was helpful and didn't exist in other aspects. So that's one thing that I think is just more reboxing, helping people get into games is a huge thing. The other thing in general, not from necessarily the online version, is I think a focus on, I would like to see more technology integrated games that aren't reliant on apps. So I think that, yes, it's great to have a phone that has all this information, but being able to integrate some form of technology into a game that doesn't necessarily use your phone, I think is a big deal. I think that having that, oh yeah, we've got an app for that, definitely leads to a lot of utility, but isn't necessarily the most approachable to a lot of people. And I think that having that device that's not necessarily a phone will remove some of that stigma that has people opposed to including apps in board games. So I think that may be another thing, but not something that I can really think too much about what that sort of connotations that would have.
Instead, we've just done a video on what the future of board gaming might look like, looking at some of the technology, and I won't get that away because there's some cool elements that has been tried, and you think, I would love that to come into gaming in a different line of thought. So, yeah, I won't go into detail it, but yeah, if that video was actually coming out before this one comes out, we'll put the link in the description down below. But it'd be interesting to see what else comes out. And you're right, it's great to, we've asked similar questions about, is there too much content on YouTube and too many content creators? And, the kind of feedback is, no, it's great to have a variety and choice out there because we can all do things a little bit different. I remember when I came up with this concept about doing a Q&A, contacted a lot of designers and content creators, and behold, 2 months later after I initially contact, they start doing a Q&A. Okay, well, that's not a coincidence. They both come out roughly the same time, 2 months after I engage with you about it. But that's great to see because I like people to try new things, and I'm not bitter about it. And I think it's great that they can do that and just keep it fresh and introduce new things. Otherwise, it gets stale.
That makes sense to me. I think having multiple views is always good. And then you can find somebody you really like and agree with, and they're going to be even more valuable to you than just having that single voice. One more thing with what you were describing with tools and technology that might be coming into board games. One thing I'm looking forward to is digital dice and just seeing the creativity that comes through that. I think that would be awesome, having dice that maybe have faces that move around as you play, or things. This brings me back to like mobile apps or mobile board games where they can do things that other board games can't. I think that having digital dice opens the space to new mechanisms that can't be done with just a physical form. So I'm so thrilled to see the creative that comes from the designers, as I mentioned before. Super looking forward to everything that they're creating.
Well, look out for the top 10 future elements of board games because that, and see if that is covered for that or not.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
So let's move on to question number 7. So what's the worst board game you have ever played?
So right now there are 2 board games that I have rated a 1. You can go check out my BGG. It's Mac 1993. But I would probably say the worst game I've ever played is Pendulum. I think that Pendulum is sort of the antithesis of exactly what it's doing. And a ranked 1 game on Board Game Geek's scale is a game that defies its description. That means that it's not what it promises at all, and it's a miserable experience. So Pendulum is a Euro game, worker placement game, where you're using sand timers in order to move the flow of the game. It also has a non-real-time version where you don't use sand timers, and it just has a delayed effect. But the game with the sand timers is a simple game of resource management and conversion, gaining different powers, abilities, but it's so simplified because it has to keep in mind the sand timer effects. But here's the twist. The game is so simple that most of the game becomes waiting for the sand timers. It's a real-time game where there's no pressure from the real time, and the game itself is not exciting enough to warrant anything. The waiting, the real-time nature And it's so frustrating because about 30 minutes of that game is sitting and waiting. So it's a game that invites downtime for a real-time experience. But if you don't play with the real-time experience, then that completely defeats the purpose of the game and it becomes even more uninteresting. And it's so frustrating because there are people that are excited to try, like, oh, just try this. I don't want to. I've tried it 5 times. I tried to give it this chance, and it defies that description. And it makes me frustrated to think that there's games like this. So that's my piece on that. Go for it.
I'm intrigued to know what you rate Monopoly then. You give that what's Monopoly?
Monopoly, I think, is like a 3 or a 2 because it at least does what it says on the box. Like, you know exactly what you're getting. You know what you're getting into with Monopoly. Not one that I'm going to ask to play, not one that I'm going to do, but it's worth at least a 2 or a 3 rating.
Yeah, I think I've made it very similar. I think we all have childhood memories of grossing the 68 hours long play of chucking a dice around and moving randomly to a spot and then having some tantrums because you've been bankrupt because somebody wouldn't sell you that property 5 hours ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think that with Monopoly, I think at least it still has that core identity of this is the game where you're buying, selling properties and you're trying to make money. And it's something that you know is going to continuously happen. At least you're pretty engaged the entire time in Monopoly, even if, like, once you get eliminated, you're out and you can go, you can bounce.
Sure. For a game it came out in 1903, I think it was designed then and it was released in 1906 as Land Lady. So that's pretty impressive in how it stood time over those years. So you've got to give it credit where credit's due.
Wow. All right.
So let's move on to the next question. We're on to number 8.
Oh man, I didn't realize I was going to be dunking on a board game on this Q&A. Whoops. There you go.
We had to get one in there. So you get some fluffy ones here. Yeah. So what fictional world or place in a board game would you like to visit?
Oh, it's Sleeping Gods for sure. Like that, without a question. This is a premise that I love the concept of. Being on a ship with people from all over the world, going on adventures, exploring together, and having that camaraderie feeling working together while you do it. The land is a unique fantasy world that isn't this generic fantasy, but something altogether interesting, the wandering sea. And then you have all of this mystical powers from the totems that you're exploring, and you can choose to interact with as much as you like. I like this concept of having this different background of characters, this crew that you are working together, and you get to form those relationships. So that's it for sure. I love that concept. And if there's like media or anything that has that idea, I think one that came out recently was 1977, where it's like this crazy sci-fi thing where you have that idea of this cruise ship and all these people are on it while crazy things are happening, but they all have their different cultures and languages. That's so fascinating to me and something that I love. So that's my answer. That is the Wandering Sea from Sleeping Gods.
Fantastic. It's not a game I dived into yet, and I've been on the fence of do I want to try it out. There's lots of rave reviews about it, and but I'm sure one day I'll get around to it.
It's the best adventure game, hands down. I think that's bar none. It plays great at pretty much every player count, and it's one that I keep playing, which is wild because I'm trying to play all these campaign games, but I always have that tugging in the back of my head. It's like, or you could just play Sleeping Gods again. So that's where I'm at almost all the time when deciding to play campaign games.
I'm sure one day I'll give it a try. So let's move on to our next question. So we're in question 9. What's the weirdest suggestion anyone has ever put forward to you?
Weirdest suggestion anybody ever has put forward to me. Is this game related or something else?
I think we'll go with your content. So has anyone given you a suggestion you thought, that's a little bit outside the box, but maybe a little bit too strange for us?
I had one company ask me for a review on a specific game, and I don't remember the type of game it was, but it was supposed to be like this I don't know what this is. It's like some fandom or some community that's all about it. It's like a horror style of game, but it has to do with a physical presence of the people at the table. I don't know how to describe it, but it just gave me a very uncomfortable feeling. So if anybody is in the comments and knows what I'm talking about, please put that down. They like stopped contacting me after I asked for more information. So I don't know where that came up, but it had to do with like the physical space and doing things that just made me uncomfortable. So I don't know exactly what this is, but they were creating a board game about it. And apparently it's a thing. There's a group of people that enjoy this style. If you know what I'm talking about, let me know down in the comments, but I can't think of the term to save my life right now.
I'm sure people are getting their thoughts in process thinking, what kind of things are they getting up to in their groups?
It was wild, but I don't know. It felt like something like maybe I give it a try, but also like, I don't know if this is something I'm comfortable with at all. Like, do I even sign to review or cover this? Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I would have to find the email to find the exact description of this style of game.
best kept a secret.
Probably.
So let's move on to our final question, Mackenzie, number 10. Very short one. So what draws you into buying a board game? So what is it that you see that entices you to buy that game?
So there are four main things that I look for when it comes to game. First off is designer. If I know the designer is good, has that pedigree, that's going to automatically get me interested, whether or not the game looks interesting. And that's the second one is the theme and the art style. If it's something that is exciting that I'm looking forward to, excellent. So that's just going to entice me more. And sometimes if it's a new designer or a designer I don't know, the theme is going to bring me in before even researching that other name. The next thing has to do with the said mechanism. So a lot of times they'll give blurbs or descriptions as to what the game is about. So I'm always looking there, whether it has a solo mode or not. Those are some of the big things to make sure I can get it played, understand it, who is it for, and what sort of spot it fills in a library for our big conventions or just for a standard game night. And then the last big thing is making sure that 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1 second. Dang it, he was right there. So last thing is 1, 2, 3. Dang, I had it in my head.
I'm sure free side. I'm sure we can work with free. That's a lot. But is it art by any chance?
I think art goes with the theme and direction of the game. Oh, number 4 is if it has proven to actually be a good game. If there are reviewers that have played it, have actually seen it, understand what it's about, and can maybe give me some comparisons onto what other games it's like. So making sure that it has a good pedigree. I had a comment once on a video. They asked me, how many games from this year did you actually play? And so they said that I had covered like 55 games, I think, last year, 55 different games. And they said that, oh, my like worst of the year list was totally invalid because these 7 games were awful. And I told them I didn't play those 7 games because everybody said they were awful. So why would I spend my time buying this game that everybody says is awful just to say, oh yeah, it's awful? Sounds like a waste of time, waste of money, waste of resources just to get that extra opinion out there when it's pretty much well known that the game is trash. So that's one thing that I think is a big deal is other people reviewing, understanding, and once again, talking about what we said earlier, if you know that a reviewer that you enjoy and actually aligns with you dislikes a game, it's one you'll probably stay away from as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to name names, but I know one particular reviewer has a bit of backlash on being negative. And in fact, I think this individual is very positive about board game reviews, but as perhaps said something they don't quite like about the game, which is fine because it's a subjective opinion. And the publisher or designers have contacted them to say, I'm not happy because people rely heavily on your opinion. You just say you don't like my game. Well, that's the way it goes, unfortunately. And you know, if that's the way it works, that's the way it works. Welcome to your world, and that's a gamble you take.
That's a big thing that I do whenever people ask me for reviews is I say, hey, I'm not going to make any videos or anything before I tell you my thoughts on the game. I always do pros, neutrals, and cons. So if they do want to send me a game for review, I tell them, I'll tell you my pros, neutrals, and cons before I start filming, because if you don't want this game, I'm review pushed out, I'm not going to make it. Like, there's no reason for me to do it if it's something that you're going to be upset with. It saves me time, it saves them time, and I don't have to have that awkward conversation. Because there are some companies that I have put out reviews for that are like, why would you do this? I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to make this like a standard business practice now before I create any content for any game here on out.
Certainly good advice, and I'm sure others will take that on board. And that brings us to the end of the show. So we hope you've enjoyed that. And if you've enjoyed Under the Meeple Light show, then we're close to the end of season 1, and soon we'll be bringing it in season 2. But if you've got any particular questions you'd like us to present guests in the future, please let us know in the comments down below. If you've already done so, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. So a big thank you to our guest today, Mackenzie from SideGames, LLC. If you haven't already done so, please check out his channel. It's certainly worth a look. And until next time, take care.